Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide with trusted information for you to use to make a decision. On my screen, is a Wikipedia link on the matter of king, which means I'm going to be taking the discussion to what is somewhat topical in Jamaica today. And as the king of the dancehall, is it Beenie Man, Bounty Killer, Vybz Kartel, or Yellow Man? Now, I want to take the discussion not from a perspective of an emotional perspective, whether being emotional intelligent or psychologically intelligent, but from what is in terms of the social structure acceptance of issues. And then I will use that to dissect the matter and therefore determine who is, if any, is the king of the dancehall. Now let's look at the word king. Now, the word king is a title given to a male monarch in a variety of contexts. And we're talking about Wikipedia, we're reading from Wikipedia now. A king is an absolute monarch if he holds the power of government without control or the entire sovereignty over a nation. He is limited monarch if the power is retained by fixed laws. And he is an absolute when he holds the whole legislative, judicial, and executive power on when the legislature or when the legislative or judicial power or both are vested in other people by the king. Kings are hereditary sovereigns when they hold the power of government by right of birth or inheritance, and elective when raised to the throne by choice. Now, the more I look at this definition, is the more I'm trying to understand what exactly obtains in terms of why would we be discussing king for dancehall, all right? Which is what is happening here. Now, it's clear that king indicates some form of prestige, power, and not only prestige and power, but a king is not a title ascribed to an individual by himself. A king is not only a title, a king is a vested authority in an individual to indicate control, power, and sometimes governance. All right? Now, so within this context, and there's reading here for you to actually go and read after that I've taken from Wikipedia. And you can also go and actually look at other things in other articles, other writers that have actually examined this matter relating to what? A king. Now, from all the perspective outlined earlier in terms of the reading of who a king is, let's get back to the discussion now as to whether Beenie Man, Bounty Killer, Vybz Kartel, or Yellow Man is a king. Now, who ascribed kingship to any of these individuals? Did they ascribe the kingship to themselves? Well, one song say, "Welcome to Beenie Man's the king of the dancehall." Beenie Man sang that song. Yellow Man ascribed king to himself. No, Vybz Kartel is taking it on to himself. And possibly Bounty Killer is brought into discussion because persons are saying, if it is that these persons are going to be ascribing kingship to themselves, why not include Bounty Killer in the discussion? I don't think Bounty Killer is arguing that he's a king, but I think it is more so in terms of his contribution to the space of music that we're having that discussion. He's actually included in that discussion. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's look at what Michael Manley, Edward Seaga, and our current Prime Minister has done in terms of contribution to nation building, nation development. Should we also ascribe king to them? Let me go further. Let's look at what Bob Marley has done in terms of his contribution to reggae. And when we're talking about his contribution to reggae, that Bob Marley's contribution was as it relates to one, freedom fighting, two, consciousness, three, a culture, four, freedom, and five, leadership. Bob, therefore, was a visionary. Is it because, and let me rephrase that, given that Bob Marley was and is a visionary, and I'm using is here because I think his legacy is currently existing and actually manifesting itself in various forms. So I say is. Now, within that context, should we ascribe king to Bob Marley? Now, I do not seem to understand how it is that we're using words loosely because of a contribution. So, Vibe Kartel has made significant contribution to the space of dancehall. So does Beenie Man, so is Bunty Killer, and of course, Yellow Man being father of it, founding father. Now, should we say because Yellow Man was the founding father of dancehall, or one of the pioneers in terms of putting dancehall out there in terms of the international space, this makes him the king? Should we say, as a result of what Vybz Kartel has done and his contribution to the current dancehall space, that makes him king? Now, should we also argue that as a result of the contribution of Beenie Man in terms of his songs, his repertoire, his catalogs, that makes him a king? And likewise, that could also be argued for Bunty Killer. Who exactly is a king? And I'm trying to understand exactly again who exactly is a king. Because if we go back to the definition of who a king is, then I do not see any of these individuals fall in the line of a king. No. In the in many contexts that you're actually seeing here, a king is not only a label given to someone who so desire that. And there's etymology in terms of exactly what king is. And there's also a history of what king is and what king means. Here it is in terms of Wikipedia, and there are many other things that we can actually go and look at king. But I'm saying let's go back to the definition as to what a king is. All right? Because if we're going to talking about an individual as king, whether he's going to be appointed king as a result of heredity or as a result of position or status in life, that person must be ordained by others to say, listen, you are a king. That's what I agreed. And the word agreement here speaks of within the context of those persons who have the power to appoint you king. Okay? Now, let's get back again. We say a king is a male monarch in a variety of contexts. A king is an absolute monarch if he holds the power of government without control, or the entire sovereignty over a nation. He is a limited monarch if his power is retained by fixed laws, and is an absolute, that means an absolute king, when he holds the whole legislative, judicial, and executive power, or when the legislative or judicial power, or both, are vested in other people by the king. Kings are hereditary sovereigns when they hold the power of government by right of birth or inheritance, and elective kings when raised to the throne by choice. So let us argue, which throne are we speaking of here? Are we speaking that the throne is a dancehall? Because if we're arguing the throne is a dancehall, what we're kind of going to be doing that, the critical term here within the context of the definition for a king is elective. Who elected any of the persons who are currently arguing that they are king of the dancehall? And I could even include in this discussion Bunty Killer. Who elected any of these individuals to be king? Is a king a self-appointed position? Because if that is declared, then I could declare that as of today, I'm King Dr. Paul Bourne. Would that make me a king? No. So being a man ascribed to himself king of the dancehall, does that make him a king? Because he articulated that kingship. Vybz Kartel is claiming that he's the king of the dancehall. That is an articulation. Yellowman started the discussion and called himself King Yellowman. So all these individuals ascribe to themselves kingship. Well, Vybz Kartel has not done so. Sorry, Bounty Killer has not done so, but we put in Bounty Killer inside the discussion or the discourse because with the contribution of Bounty Killer's catalog to the culture of dancehall and the music of dancehall, some people argue the genre of dancehall, then that could actually argue for him being in this discussion. And therefore, I'm asking the question to you, my faithful supporters and listeners. Does ascribing yourself a title means that you are? Isn't the culture going to determine and dictate whether that title is warranted by you? Or can just arbitrarily ascribe yourself a title? Okay, then. If that's the case, that we can arbitrarily ascribe ourselves a title, as Beenie Man, as Vybz Kartel, and as Yellow Man are doing, then as of today, all my persons who are actually listening to my voice, ascribe yourself doctor. And not only that, ascribe yourself to be a medical doctor and tell me if you'll be able to get away with it. Or ascribe yourself as a lawyer and enter into that courtroom and defend a client. Or let's go further. Ascribe yourself the title of the prime minister. Walk somewhere and actually make a decision on the country's behalf. Or ascribe yourself the title of being the president of the United States and go and transact business with Jamaica in a bilateral manner for any reason, any agreement, any issues. Then you're going to argue that I'm silly. Yes, I am silly because I'm trying to argue and determine what I'm saying to you, that it is a silly perspective to just arbitrarily ascribe yourself a title, any title for that matter, and say, I am because I am. I like that. I get back to the Bible, right? Where Christ say, I am that I am. Where God said, I am that I am. No. So I'm arguing no. Merely ascribing yourself a title does not mean that that title is true. I would need to understand that clearly. Mere ascribing a title to yourself in a society that must confirm this title is not a worthy title that you can take and keep. Within that context, I will say there is no king of the dancehall. There are great men such as Yellowman, Pioneer, Beenie Man, Follower, as well as Bounty Killer, and the current trailblazer, none other than Vybz Kartel, Mr. Adidja Parma. Now, that note takes me to a conclusion on the matter. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide trusted information to you to use to make decision. What do you have to say about the matter? Is my assessment a fair one? Is my assessment balanced? Is my assessment biased? And if you think it is, can provide me the rationale for why you say my perspective is biased? Because I want to understand clearly our society, by general standard, in terms of those persons who are in control of the society, the power hegemony elites, they are the ones that define things broadly. And they have not defined king within the current context used by Beenie Man, Vybz Kartel, and Yellow Man. And because they have not defined it like that, I, Paul Bourne, cannot accept a mere subscription by someone or an articulation of a perspective or a concept by someone to be true because the person ascribed himself or herself that title. The society does not function like that, and therefore one should not take that perspective or even support a discussion on whether Beenie Man, Bounty Killer, Vybz Kartel, or Yellow Man is the king of the dancehall. I'm saying to you, there's no king of the dancehall within the context of the word and the culture accepted for who a king is. As I said before, The men that I'm speaking of range from pioneers to current dominant person in the sector or genre of music. Let me hear what you have to say. There is no king of the dancehall. No Beenie Man, no Bunty Killer, no Vybz Kartel, and of course, no Yellow Man. Do you agree? What do you have to say? What do you have to say to my perspective? Is there a king of the dancehall? What do you think? Is there a king? I don't think so. Thank you.